Hey guys, I'm Philip Wilder, and this last week my friend asked me a question. He said, what if your God wasn't real? And what if God failed you? Now I've thought about this question a lot, but the way he asked it made me think about it in a little bit of a different way, and it caused me to realize that if my God wasn't real, I would have absolutely nothing, and there'd be no point to living. But strangely enough, because of this, I actually had peace and joy. How did this happen? Well, that's what I want to talk about. But first of all, let's get to it. So today I want to read John chapter 6, verse 66, and 66 through 69. Before this passage, Jesus shares some hard news. And because of this, a lot of people walked away from Jesus. So we'll pick it up in verse 66. It says, "After this, many of his disciples turned back and no longer walked with him. So Jesus said to the 12, 'Do you want to go away as well?' Simon Peter answered him, 'Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of life, and we have believed and have come to know that you are the Holy One of God.'" Those are some big words by Peter, but let me unpack that in just a little bit. First, I want to share why I reacted the way I did, or why I came to that conclusion after my friend asked me that question. Before I started following Jesus passionately, I went through a hard season of depression. I felt lonely, I felt like there was no purpose in life, and I felt completely unsatisfied. If God wasn't real, and if Jesus wasn't real, Jesus, who's the one who brought me out of that season, if he didn't exist, I would fall right back into that season. Or if I came to realize that Jesus didn't exist, I'd fall right back into that season. Now, I'm pretty confident in my faith. I've been asking hard questions all the years I've been following Jesus, and so far he's answered pretty much all of them, and others I can trust him on. But if somehow I discovered that he wasn't real, which I don't think will happen, but we'll say what if, I would be back in that state of depression, because without God, there is no point and no meaning to life. A lot of people have brought up proposed reasons or meanings to life without God. One is, you can have a positive impact on the world. But what's the point? Everyone's just going to die. Why try to make a positive impact on other people's lives when people are, without God, no different than mosquitoes? Give me one good reason why people are different than mosquitoes. Sure, maybe we can do different things and we can feel empathy, but in the end, if we're just animals, so are mosquitoes. The only reason why we are different than mosquitoes is because God has ascribed to us a higher level of value. He cares about us more and made us in his image. But if God doesn't exist, we are in no person's image, no being's image, and therefore we are just animals like all the others, just like the chicken you ate last night for dinner. Isn't that depressing? Well, that's exactly the state that I was in before I started passionately following Jesus. I started wondering, what's the point? Everything I do in this life is just going to come to nothing once I die. Life is just going to become an endless cycle of meaninglessness. I'll go to work, I'll come home, I'll be with my family, then I'll go to work and I'll come home and I'll be with my family, and then maybe I'll go on a vacation 3 or so weeks a year. But then I'll come back and I'll go to work and I'll come home and be with my family, then go to work. And it just means nothing without God. Another meaning that people have tried to pull out of life without God is that we can just be happy. The point of life is to be happy and pursue our dreams. Well, when I wasn't passionately following Jesus, it was really hard to be happy. When the point of life is to be happy, suddenly everything that gives you joy is frustrating and annoying. Because this is what happens. When you turn to something to find meaning, it's going to disappoint you. I'm sure you've gone to many parties or hangouts or birthdays and thought, this is going to be so fun, and then you walk away from it and you're like, Ugh, that was so annoying. That wasn't worth it. Or maybe it's video games, or maybe it's the outdoors, or maybe it's a relationship. Whatever it is, they will all fail you as they failed me. If something hasn't failed you yet and you've been pursuing it for, we'll say, more than a year, please share. I'm very interested because I have yet to ever find something quite like that. A lot of people think that they found meaning in something, but really what it is they just keep hopping from one thing to another, or they just don't think about it. They don't think about how meaningless it all is. And that's a very depressing thought. And that is what I was wrestling through when my friend asked me, what if God didn't exist? And I realized everything in my life depends upon God. My job as working with this ministry is dependent upon God and following God. My heart and feeling well and having meaning in life is all dependent upon God. Even my marriage to my wife, if I didn't have God, that marriage would fall apart because we would just be seeking after our own interests rather than desiring to serve and follow God together. Everything would fall apart. Now you might think, Philip, it's a terrible idea to put all your eggs in one basket, because if God failed you, then you'd completely fall apart. And yes, you're absolutely right. If God failed me, I would fall apart. But the thing is we all put our eggs in one basket or maybe multiple baskets. But the thing is all those other options, it's like investing all of your money in one stock and then potentially that stock going bankrupt and you losing all of your money. You don't want to invest in just one stock. You want to diversify and invest in different things. But Jesus is the one stock that will only ever go up. If you knew a stock was going to go up indefinitely and never go down, you would invest all of your money in that one stock. It just makes absolute sense if you knew that, of course. And so in the same way, that's why I feel so confident, resting knowing that all of my hopes, all of my dreams, all of my desires, and all of my purpose for living rests in God's hand and in God says he is, because God is the only ground that is not shaky. Think about it. You can trust in money. You could trust in relationships. You can trust in friends. You can trust in children. You can trust in cars. You can trust in the future, but all of these things are so uncertain. We definitely realized that this last year. People unfortunately die, and sometimes they can leave us as well too. We cannot trust in these things. And that is one of the things that Peter says in this verse. He says, Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of life. Just like myself, Peter also has invested everything in Jesus. There is no plan B because he doesn't need a plan B. And I hope that you can find hope and joy in that as well too. If Jesus is not the foundation for everything in your life, make him so, because he is the only thing that will not fail you. Don't just follow Jesus because he's the only thing that won't fail you. Follow Jesus because, as Peter says, and we have believed and have come to know that you are the Holy One of God. And just before that, he says, you have the words of eternal life. Jesus truly is the truth, and he is good. He deserves us to depend on him in everything, just simply because of who he is. And just to have a relationship with him, we should desire to give up everything. If I had a choice between giving up Jesus or having Jesus and spending the rest of my life in a concentration camp being tortured and beaten, it would be a hard decision, but I would not be able to live this other life. I would have to pick this life with Jesus in difficulty. And I hope this Bible Byte encouraged you to see the same thing as well. Jesus is worth it. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.